Thanks, Rich.
All right, good evening, everybody. Tonight is Wednesday, April 16th. It's the monthly meeting for the school building committee and the permanent building committee. The first item on the agenda is to review the updated site plan and floor plan. And
Yeah, if you don't mind, Rich, we're gonna take things in a little bit of a different
Oh,
order, if that's
sure.
okay.
Yep.
And if it's okay, I'm gonna share my screen and we will jump right in. We promised to make this quick tonight. It's really just a general update. And can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. So here's our agenda for this evening. We wanted just to update you. We did receive MSBA feedback on the PSR submission, their normal review process. So we're going to talk a little bit about that just to give you a quick update. We're going to talk about prepping for the community forum scheduled for May 1st. And then the design team will walk you through some updates on floor plans and site plan updates based on some user feedback and some meetings that we've had with the working group. So I will jump right in. So sorry. So on the before I go to that slide, on the MSBA feedback, it's pretty standard. A lot of there was no shocking comments. Just to give you an example, they had asked for some updated site plans on a couple of the options, confirming things like that life cycle cost analysis was being performed on systems selection, mechanical, electrical, plumbing system selection, confirming some budgets and cost per square foot drivers. They like to understand why our estimates are what they are and what's driving the cost for the project. And then things like on the ed plan where they're looking for some interior circulation diagrams, just sort of a better understanding how kids will circulate into the building in the morning and then subsequently out of the building in the afternoon. The design team and Vertex will formulate responses to that, which will go out near the end of the month. As we have 2 weeks to pull that together. So we'll work on that. You may remember what we did during the PDP phase. It's pretty standard. We will develop the responses and then we will get that all packaged up for them. So any questions on that before we move on? Okay, not hearing any. So we're scheduled to have another community forum May 1st. We're trying obviously to reach people and build up interest in the project before they disappear for the summer and school's out. And so we have this this flyer that Tape developed that was distributed digitally to the town for distribution, just to try to gauge, try to garner interest for joining on May 1st. Hopefully we can get good attendance, and especially with potentially new faces. It's scheduled for May 1st from 7 to 9 in the school auditorium.
Mike, can I just ask a question
Yep.
on that? So
Sure.
on this, there's the parent support group, which is going to meet tonight at 8 o'clock. This is a public document, correct? So this could be shared to them?
Yep.
Shared. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I actually already shared it with them and they had to reschedule their meeting to next week. So they're not meeting tonight, but they do plan on getting this out to any of the people on their list and however they're sharing information.
Okay, so with that, it's a great thought, but the question that I asked Mike is we have to be careful on what we're sharing. We did have that conversation.
And I was aware that it was public, so that's why I shared it with them.
Yeah, this is absolutely, there's nothing wrong. This is all about sharing of information, not advocating. So that's certainly something that that this group is charged with is to disseminate that information to the community. So there's absolutely nothing to worry about there, Rich.
If this was distributed on the town listserv either today or yesterday, I can't remember,
That's
along with a note from the superintendent.
right, which makes it a public document as well.
Yeah.
Right.
I
So
just noticed the word selected is misspelled in the document. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, good
Fix that.
catch. Yes. We can resend it. Chris, if you could just note that, maybe you can make that correction on your base document.
All right, all good. Thank you.
So for that forum, this is what we see as the focus for the presentation and agenda. Basically, the normal welcome and introductions, reviewing once again the project process and schedule. We don't need to go into too much depth, but we want to make sure people are aware of it, especially if there's new faces in the crowd. So we'll go through the quick overview of the process, where we stand in the process, and the schedule for getting to a vote in November. And then we will review and focus on the selected preferred schematic, option formerly known as AR4A, and then do a quick overview of the cost comparison of the options and why we ended up choosing AR4A, and then just a quick overview of what's coming next, and open it up to Q&A. So any comments, thoughts, feedback?
Will we also discuss the concept of what it would look like if this doesn't pass, and how there would probably be an override every 2 years and unknown costs? Obviously, we don't know what the next 10 years are going to look like for anything. It's kind of a minute to minute every single day, but are we going to make it clear that the town is going to be paying for this one way or another?
That certainly can be part of the cost comparison discussion. We did evaluate, before you were on the committee, Shayna, the cost of quote unquote doing nothing, which really is not doing nothing, but
Right.
what are the repairs that would be needed over the span of the next 10 years or so to keep the building stable and to keep it from deteriorating. So we do have that information.
You know what,
And-
Mike, I think actually that she brings up a really good point. I think we should, that should be noted, somehow, maybe.
Yeah.
I think the thing is we were working on to try to gain enthusiasm for this, but that point is well taken, that, we have to ground it a little bit in reality and say, hey, by the way, if we don't do anything, it's not going to be a good thing. So
Yeah,
mistake.
it's not a question of paying for the project or $0. It's a question of paying for the project or paying less dollars for just to keep the building operational. So we do have all that information, and we can build that into the presentation.
Yeah, I think that it's important. I mean, that really is, what does it cost us to repair this thing over the next 10 years, right? As opposed to let's renovate it
Yep.
and upgrade it and make it, a really good place, as opposed to just, I think the difference is repair versus renovate. I mean, maybe it's not as simple as that, but repair costs are enormous.
Correct. So that was the 10-year capital
Right.
plan that we developed. So we have that content ready, and we can certainly share that as part of the public forum. So I've marked it down, and we'll include that in our maybe we'll reword this agenda, but in our sort of cost review, we'll include that data.
Mike,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Ellen.
I gotta run away. I've got another meeting here. There should be three pieces, if I'm not wrong. There should be the 4A, right? The 4A that we're advocating. But then there should be the two do nothings. One of which is the immediate, do it right away, do nothing, right? And then there's the 10-year do nothing, correct?
I guess I'm not sure what you mean by the right away do nothing.
Okay, there was a right of way. We spoke about it, you and I, because I was confused because the number was a little weird. Then you sent me the right one. There's like this right away. We do it.
Oh, you mean doing the base repair, which is basically just bringing the building up to current code.
But all at once.
Yeah, but all at once, yes.
Yes.
So our intention is to review the cost comparison of all options that we looked at during PSR. So just as we did during the PSR phase, we're not going to suddenly take that information out at
Right.
this point.
Right.
In the fall, we'll probably want to focus on the option as opposed to, looking at, say, the new build option or AR5 and AR.
No, I don't, no, I'm just
Oh,
talking
I know.
about, okay.
I understand. I understand what you're
Yeah,
saying. And yes, so
zeroing in on those three because they're all very similar. I mean, one is like
Yeah.
65 or 70, the immediate one.
yep.
The 10-year one is 80. And then, of course, the 4A, B, whatever one, I never remember the name of it. That's the 127, but supposedly with the money from the state, that's down to 80. So they're all
Yep.
about the same money. Those are the three.
Yep. Understood.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
I hear you.
Because all anybody's talking about, I'm telling you, I hear it all the time.
Uh-huh.
People, it's a no-brainer, Ellen. It's a no-brainer. I mean, you get 127 million for 80. You get $127 million building for 80.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Well,
really,
I hope more people keep saying it's a no-brainer. That'd be great.
I know, but
And Bob
that's
would be happy.
that's the message. That's the one thing that people are remembering. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yep.
That's all. Okay.
Okay, that's good feedback. Thank you, Ellen. Any other thoughts, comments on the public forum agenda? All right. All right, so I'm gonna turn it over to Chris, and he's gonna walk you through the updated floor plans and site plans and the feedback from his meetings with Bob and his staff.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Before I launch into the plans, I just wanted to make sure I introduced Steve Anliot. He's one of the job captain assistant PMs on our project and helping us out. And so you have a face to a name in case you see him at some point in the future, either at the community forums or elsewhere. But that's what Steve's doing with us tonight, and was also backup in case my flight didn't land on time. So he's here to observe now. But the floor plans are changing. So usually when we start schematic design, we jump right into these programming meetings, which is where we sit with the department heads within the building and start to go through really in the weeds kind of programming sessions, talking about how the building's organized, what you need in your rooms, how it's set up, all those kinds of nuances. We did this at a high level with the principals and Bob during PSR and PDP, and we kept massaging the plans based on where we were at that time, and then we kind of landed on the ad reno where we really can make any move we want in the middle school, but the high school portion we were trying to leave it as intact as possible and make it as minimally disrupted as possible, just to keep the cost down essentially. And so when we went through the programming sessions, we've now got more detail and we're sort of updating the plans right now. So these plans that you see on the screen are as of yesterday, I guess. And we're still in the process of exploring a few things, which I'll explain in a moment. But the big kind of things you'll start to see down on the middle school wing, which is on the bottom edge of the page, that is getting shaped and sculpted. So what generally happens when we get into schematic design, we're also like, if you think of it like a sponge, we're trying to squeeze all the extra water out. And so you can see us starting to shape the building more. We just took big, broad brush strokes during PSR, and now we're trying to squeeze it because at the end of the day, the best way to get money out of the building is to cut square footage. So if we can cut that in the gross of the building, which is the kind of white areas on the floor plan, then we win. That's a big win for us because we're not spending as much money on things that aren't directly educationally impactful. So this is the way the floor plan's looking right now. We've been working around the superintendent's office and the loading dock, which is to the right of the cafeteria, just up above the gym, the new gym, and the middle school. And then with the programming sessions, we started to work on the high school area, and I'll show you a little bit more, or tell you a little bit more about that in a next slide. But you can go to the next slide. And the second floor here kind of mirrors the first floor, so you can see that again the middle school is being shaped, and then the high school is still getting worked on up there. Just to note, we actually didn't put the elevator symbols on this plan, but they were on the other plan. But there's actually 2 elevators in the building, and the middle school, high school at this point are not connected at the second floor, so you can't actually go from the second floor of the middle school to the second floor of the high school without going downstairs. And that's that's a decision that was made kind of a while back, and there's not really a great way to make that connection, but I'm just highlighting that the 2 on the second floor are actually very separated. So there is a lift in the locker room area, which would help serve access to that second floor that is currently the girls' locker room and planned to be the girls' locker room in the future. So you can go to the next slide. So some key takeaways from the teacher programming meetings. We met with them on the 8th of April. It was an all-day session. We discussed the outcome of those meetings with the working group and came out with a few things that needed to be explored further. And those are primarily the following bullet points, where we had the teachers and staff for the high school prefer to be grouped departmentally. Basically, that means that if you have all the science rooms grouped together, then they can kind of get to some educational cohesiveness and benefits there. And the same follows with all the other core subject matter classrooms. The non-science rooms are easier to do this with because it's really, the rooms are pretty much all the same, and it's just about making sure you get the right counts. But the science rooms are very dedicated and specific, so you need to make sure you land that in the right place. During PSR, we actually had 2 science rooms on the first floor and 2 on the second floor. And so we're looking right now at a way to revise that so that we get all the science rooms in the same location, same hall on the same floor. And that will also then foster all the other departments coming together the same way. The middle school teaming model was refined, and so we're just making sure we have enough classrooms per team. There's 3 teams within the middle school, and we need to make sure we have all the classrooms associated with that. So we're just moving some stuff around. During PSR, we had showed a counseling suite that was central to the school and had all the counselors was planned to be in it. But through these sessions, we got a little bit further into it and realized that the high school and middle school counselors prefer to be separated and within their the communities that they serve, in the neighborhoods they serve within the building. And so we're breaking those out and finding the places to embed those within the high school and the middle school wing appropriately. The drop-off and pickup sequence was reviewed, and that was really coming out of where the buses are dropping, where the students are coming by car, are coming in, and the desire for students to gather in the cafeteria first thing in the morning. So we're sort of looking, that segues into some conversation about the site plan that I'll talk to you about in a second, but that's also one of the comments that the MSBA made in their PSR review was they wanted us to do a diagram about how kids move through the building at those various points in the day. So that's all kind of related, and we're working on that. And then art and STEAM are being reviewed just to make sure we have enough room for where those need to go. And then we're getting more detailed on the code required portions of the building. So looking at the energy considerations, but the largest chunk of space was actually restrooms, and the new plumbing codes, I think they're probably about a year and maybe a half now, approaching a year and a half old. quite drastically changed, almost doubling the amount of toilets that we need for some occupancies. So like the assembly uses, that's auditoriums, gyms, cafeterias, things like that are high occupant uses. And so we're having to add a lot of toilet rooms to this building. I'm still going to try to have a conversation with some of the local inspectors and see if there's any relief from that we can get. But right now we're trying to plan as though we don't get relief, so that we know what the worst case scenario is. And so those are kind of the big moves that we're working on right now. You can go to the next slide. And the site plan we started talking about as well. This is, you may remember this from the PSR level. We had a pretty good conversation about the site plan, again, about drop off pickup. We went over parking. We're sort of entertaining some thoughts and ideas about the most efficient way for all of this to work. Again, one of the big comments and things we're trying to address right now is where the buses drop off and how kids kind of get to the cafeteria, which is, in this plan, it's the top right corner of the white area. And that area just happens to be the furthest away right now from where we're showing buses and cars coming in. And so the site team is starting to look at different ways that we can address maybe buses coming in at a different spot and kids getting directly to the cafeteria, and then how cars might be able to flow through the site a little better to kind of think about some of those things. And we were looking at the service area over by the cafeteria for loading and unloading of deliveries and trucks, and how that plays into this conversation as well. Dovetailed into that, you can go to the next slide, was a conversation about
Chris, can I interrupt for a second?
Oh, sure, yeah.
On the access, what are we doing to outreach to abutters to make sure that they understand what's going on and don't get blindsided somehow and start to get agitated?
It's a good question. We're currently not directly reaching out to abutters, but any kind of
team should think about it, just because abutters tend to be the ones who get bent out of shape when they're not addressed, even if they don't have major objections. Maybe it's for the group. Make sure that we're contacting them. They understand what we're considering. They feel as though they're getting input when they should, so that when the proposal is made, we have nipped that potential conflict in the bud.
Yeah.
Get into what trees are cutting down, because oh my goodness.
Chris,
Thankfully,
I don't believe you're planning any major changes to traffic patterns, correct? I mean,
that's
what is on site.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is that
are we telling them?
No, I'm not trying to discount that, Jim. I'm just saying, like, there should not be major impacts in terms of
what they know now,
where buses are coming in and out and where cars are coming in and out at this point. But yes, in terms of construction activities and things like that will need to be communicated to the abutters.
And I think right now we're still in the development phase, but that, it's a really good point, Jim. But right now they're still pondering things. They had a couple of conversations in the working group that, ended up not even going forwards because we decided it wasn't a good idea. So, I think when we get a little more granularity to what's going on, then yes, I agree. We should reach out to the neighbors and let them know directly.
Yeah, especially the ones with the backyards, may have vegetation removed, along with that, the traffic is, along that line there, right? So, but right now we're still looking at the roadway edge and, water management and things like that. So until we have a proposal that this committee has seen, we're not ready to engage those abutters.
Okay, the next slide, speaking of water strategies, thanks for that segue, Jeff, is an initial conversation we had about water resource management on the site, both with stormwater, but also the sort of abutting wetland resources that are on the right-hand side of this page. There's an intermittent stream, and then more across the access road, there's actually a wetland up there, and you can see some of the flagging on the underlay of this plan. But the big points here are that the engineers are starting to look at things like bioretention basins and ways that we can manage stormwater. You may hear us say low impact development. That's the bioretention ideas. And the reason they're low impact is because we can do it on the surface of they're basically ponds, and we can deal with stormwater on the surface of the ground. And some locations we probably will need to do some chambers, which are under pavement or parking, and you can pipe stormwater to that, and then it recharges into the earth from there. But the sort of big picture bottom line is that we have to reduce both rates and volumes of stormwater on the site that would leave the site potentially, and we have to make that better. And oftentimes we do get a really long way making it quite better. And so this was an initial look at some of the vulnerable areas, and then layering into this would be the new updated site plan that's forthcoming, and the ideas for parking. And if we need to, for example, on the right-hand side where it says bioretention, big long oval there, that may need to shift to the right to make room for some more parking. And maybe, like I said before, if we move bus drive over there or something, we'll have to reconfigure that parking lot, but we can kind of push things over there a little bit, not too much, but a little bit. And we're looking at all of these things to try to find the most bang for your buck, the minimal impact, like the minimal disruption that we can make, but actually get the furthest to meet the needs that we need to meet. And so
one thing I just want to make sure is clear, Chris. The bioretention basins are not exactly ponds, which would, refer to bodies of water that always have water in them. They're basically they're ponds that the storm water gets pumped in and it slows it, and while it seeps down into the ground. So it's only filled with water during or after a rain event, but it's really intended to keep the storm water on site and then let it permeate back into the ground. So oftentimes people confuse that and they think that it's has water in it 24/7. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear to everybody.
And if you need a visual, it's in front of the Clyde Brown, right in front of the drop off, directly across from the Bear, is the bioretention pond that was put in for that project.
So
they
we
typically
shouldn't
Go ahead.
plan on getting koi fish.
no.
You can get some, but we'll have to make it a little deeper in that spot.
Can I ask one question? You have a comment in there that says replace existing sewer. And you show that line it looks like it extends into maybe the tennis court area over on the Clyde Brown area. Are we looking at having to affect any of the kind of programmed areas that are next to Clyde Brown?
I would certainly hope we can not, like we can avoid that. I don't know the full scope of that sewer replacement at this moment, but I think we do have some, there's usually some piping that needs to be corrected with these buildings when we get into all the new flows that are coming out. But the goal would definitely, because those are just 5 years old now, so we would definitely want to avoid disrupting that at all, because it's just not. It's
Chris,
going
that might have
backwards
actually been the original sewer line that was
Yeah.
a transite pipe too. So Mike, and you should
Yeah.
take a note about that.
Yep.
That we definitely cut into. I believe that was the existing transite pipe there.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Might it be better to reroute it when we if we need to put in a new line?
It runs all the way across the ball fields beyond. That's why I think we intercepted it at Clyde Brown and had to kind of shift part of it out of the way.
Okay.
We'll work through the details of that.
yeah, I think this is kind of more of a first fast note of what we're doing. But yeah, thank you for that. I think we need to, especially if it's transite, we need to pay very close attention to that because it's dollars in scope. So we can go to the next slide, Mike. I think the takeaways from the site plan conversations where I kind of mentioned most of these, but kind of discussing the traffic drop-off sequences as well as parking, and the site features of the courtyards and entrances. This was a big conversation with the MSBA, and I think they're still asking some follow-up questions in PSR about entrances. So we're trying to refine that. If you hear us talk about Warner Larson, they're the landscape architect, and then there's the civil engineer, which is Niche. I just put those in here so that if you hear us say Warner Larson, kind of the conceptual division of labor, but you might not know where the line stops between the two. If you're ever confused about that and you need to know, just ask, we'll kind of clarify. Niche, consider Niche kind of more utility based, and Warner Larson all other things like planting and grading and parking and things like that, traffic. But they're updating the site plan to consider all those things we talked about before. General site safety, larger campus context, taking into consideration both the Clyde Brown and this, the loading and delivery, the maintenance, shed locations. And one thing we did talk about with the staff at the school was that we want to maybe do as minimal landscaping in terms of plants as we can. And whatever we do, make it super hardy and durable type of things, just because maintaining plantings and things on sites it's hard and can be expensive, and your guys' resources are thin, and so we don't want to create scenarios where you're having to deal with plantings that can't survive or whatever because you don't have the ability to take care of them in a way that they need to be. So and then stormwater management, as we discussed too. So I think that's really it in terms of where we are. There's a lot of moving parts right now, so I'm trying to stress that's one reason we didn't kind of show you some of the in progress things, because they are moving quite a bit right now, and we're kind of in the middle of shaking things up instead of nailing them down. And that's okay. That's what schematic design is for. You're kind of pushing into like, okay, now it's real, like real, and let's make it, this is hedging towards the sort of final effort with the project scope and budget. So we're trying to get it as well baked as we can, and we've got a lot of information that we harvested, and so I think that's all I have in terms of update. If there's any questions.
No, that's great. Thanks, Chris. That was a good update.
Rich,
Yes, sir.
I have two questions, and I maybe should have been in the last segment. One, of course, is the cost. Now, you guys who are in this business know a lot more than I do, but all you read is that these costs for building materials and whatnot are so volatile. What are we doing to hedge ourselves so that we don't have some surprise, particularly in November, that the numbers that we have are going to be good numbers, not subject to too much challenge? I mean, I'm asking a lot because we don't know what's going to happen. But I think it's important for us to keep the numbers consistent to the extent we possibly can.
That's a question on everyone's mind, Jim, these days, and it sometimes changes daily. What we can tell you is that what the tools that we use in our budgeting is what we call contingencies, and one of them is called an escalation contingency, or people often think of it like inflation. And when we have our projects estimated by professional cost estimators, they track over years and estimate what the escalation will be over a certain period of time. Now they're working with limited information, and again, as the tariff issue becomes prevalent in our conversations on a day-to-day basis, those are things that are impossible to predict. We do build in some level of contingency for cost escalation, but it's a double-edged sword. You don't want to be overly conservative and then boost the number up so high that the town won't support it. But you also want to be frank about what you are carrying in your budget, and that there is risk on a policy basis from the United States that could impact the project, well down the line. And so the best thing I think from our perspective is just to keep talking about it and making sure people understand the realities of the situation. But they do change on a regular basis. We're constantly in communication with not only estimators but builders, and a lot of the builders that we talk to, the professional, large scale construction companies, currently are estimating some of the steel and aluminum tariffs may impact construction prices by 3 to 5% in total, just the construction cost alone. So that's general feel right now, but if anybody can predict what it'll end up,
I know.
they'll be very rich people.
Well, and I would say the thing is that, when we get down towards the end, we're going to have to make a group decision on what we put in for contingency. If we,
Right.
it's going to be it's like Mike said, it's a judgment call. We could say, hey, we want to make sure we don't have to go back to the taxpayers and ask for more money. And so we want to bump our contingency up. And, that's the one ask that we have. Or we could say, hey, we're going to roll the dice and we're going to keep it low. And, if we run short, we'll have to go back to town meeting and say, hey, if you want furniture in the building, we're going to have to pay more. So that's a decision we'll have to make.
Unfortunately, it's more art than science these days. Like I said, the best thing is to keep talking about it and making sure that the community understands what is or isn't possible. Like there's no way to put a price tag on a building and then say this is exactly what it's going to cost when you have to approve it. That's the challenge that we're constantly facing.
And
Well,
Jim, another question?
Just in terms of time frame too, so we're going to do a new estimate, a completely new estimate in the July and early August timeframe. And so the end of August is when you would lock in the number that we'd bring back to the voters.
Right.
So obviously, we'll track it up and towards that point, but that's, D-Day where we have to make a collective decision.
Well, I guess as long as we can tell people, look them in the eye and say, look, we've done everything we can to anticipate this. We haven't ignored it. And as Rich
Right.
said, we have a policy that we want to deliver for this and no more. Well, then that's all very able for us to defend it. And that's what we should be doing.
And there'll be other recent data, like right now, Tri-County School is bidding as we speak. I think their filed sub bids were due this afternoon. So we can look at that data from other projects and see where
Right.
the market is. And we have a few projects in our company that are also bidding in the next few months. And we could bring that data back as well, just to see what the market's telling us.
Well, I guess I'm one that would like to hear that regularly as to what we think the environment is. And I know I'm not asking for any crystal ball here. Just I want to make sure that we can go to the voters and say we've done everything we can to anticipate this. We're not trying to do anything other than tell you what we really believe is the truth. So let's go from there.
Mike and Jeff, I have one other comment. I saw some news today about a school that they're doing in Lowell, and that the city has kind of taken on some schedule and financial issues because they blew through their contingency at that school. And I guess
Is that Lowell High School?
yeah, Lowell High School. And I don't know much about why they did, but I thought maybe it would be good for us to look at that and say, are there lessons learned that we could apply to this? And, was that something due to escalation, or was that something or something that we can think about? I didn't know if you had any insight into that, or if we could at least look into what those issues were.
So
Yeah,
we can
pull back.
certainly ask the question. We're working with the builder of that on another project at the University of Massachusetts Lowell down the street. They built that project at Lowell High. So we can certainly do some digging and see what may have led to that. But we look at all our projects and all projects across the Commonwealth for any sort of lessons learned about ways to avoid that. So it's a good question, and I'll follow up if I'm able to get any information for you.
Okay.
That project was one of I'll call it the COVID hangovers, right? So that project bid under the COVID. It's still going because it was a very complicated phase renovation. I think they had
In
5
an
phases
urban-
where they actually
yeah.
turned over the new building,
Yeah.
demoed another building, turned over the next edition, and now we're on to the final phase. So they were $15 million over at the time of construction, and they might not have gone back for enough money. And that's why they're kind of running short. And so there was a bailout from the state. The state did give them additional money, but they could have chosen at that time not to go back to the taxpayers. But ultimately, they really needed the money because of the size of that overage. I'll say that when we pick a construction manager partner, that's another key factor we want to go through. Make sure we find a firm that knows how to be nimble with cost overall and is not a overly conservative firm. And so that'll be important when we get to that stage of picking a partner for this project.
It might be important to pick somebody that understands a rehab situation like we have, that can kind of
100%.
look ahead and understand maybe some of the challenges that we're going to see, or that we're going to feel in the pocket.
Agreed.
Jim, you had another question. Did we get both of them? Because
I just wanted to go back to, after the forum, do we have some kind of fact sheet or something we can distribute? We can also distribute a town meeting and the town election. I mean, those are times when people who will vote in November are going to be around, Joe. If we do have something, I think we should distribute it.
We talked about doing something like that, not necessarily with the numbers, but more about the project facts and the decisions this community has made to date. Because the numbers, we don't want to. It's one thing to present the numbers and talk about where they are currently. It's another one to distribute written literature that says this is the number, right? And so I do hesitate to put the written number on leaflets that we hand out to people. I think we should certainly talk about the number and where the market is right now. But the more we hand out literature, physically handed out, and the more concrete that number feels. So it's just something I want you guys to think about. We're also working on updated FAQs for the website, frequently asked questions, so we can put those numbers up there. That's a place where we can control the narrative, because if it changes, we change that over time. And so as it evolves, that's a repository that we have control over to make sure the right message gets out there to the public.
Yeah, I'm not advocating a number. I'm just saying these are 2 times when people who will be voting in November will be there, and we can hand them something, even if it's just update on the school project, just to keep it in front of them, similar to what we've talked about today. That's all.
So you're talking spring town meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is what,
Now-
May 5th or May 12th?
What's the date on that?
The 5th is the town meeting, and the 7 days later is the election. I can't remember. I think it's the 5th. I could be wrong. 5th is town meeting.
Okay.
Even though, it's just a matter of these people will vote, and to the extent you can get them, and they will vote in November. A lot of times you send stuff out to people who won't even show up, but these people, if they're showing up in May, they'll show up in November for sure.
Jeff, we have that template that we had circulated between Vertex and TAP A. Maybe we should just edit that and have it ready for the 1st, and then it'll be ready for the town meeting sequence and vote. So
We'll
Agreed.
just have we'll have to figure out how to get that printed, Jeff. It'd be the only thing on that, because I'm not sure. What do we get into? Is that something that we could have printed because it's informational?
If it's informational, it's not,
Yeah.
it's, that you just have to walk the line of, not talk about the cost of doing nothing, but talk about the project itself, right? And that's just the line we walk with the distributed literature. Just describe the facts of the project and what you guys are evaluating and what's included in the project.
That's fine. So would that be something that you guys would be able to take that out of your additional funds type of thing and have it printed?
Yeah,
for us?
We'll draft it up. We'll circulate it to the leadership here to make sure it passes what you guys want it to say. And then, yes, the reimbursables of the project can pick up the printing.
Yeah, we'll just have to figure out maybe in the working group how to get it distributed during town meeting.
Well, a town meeting, you just put it on a table and
Put it
then
on a table,
walk
yeah.
up and, again, that way you're letting people solicit the information versus pushing it on people. There are nuances to that. But
And if anybody wants, to stand, at the table and distribute it, that often helps. So it's not just people passing by.
Well, and that's why I was asking, because that's, if we're gonna, I know we can't go out and hand it out like putting like when you go to the parking lot at the
Right,
at the-
we could produce a stack on a table, and if somebody else picks up the stack and hands it out, that
Yeah.
was nice of them.
Okay, perfect.
Could
Yes.
we have like a board there with a like a
Yep.
rendering of the?
Yep.
Anything that are facts of the project, we can put up there. Any facts, anything that's a a clear statement of the project is absolutely above board.
All right, so we could work on that and then talk to the election officials on where we can get that set up. So
Yep.
we're in the right
I'm
spot.
I'm all for a board and for the whatever fact to be handed out, but will it cause any confusion for that specific town meeting? People seeing the board and then being like, wait, are we voting
That's-
on this?
That's often
tonight?
why it's helpful to have people, handing it out so you can explain, this is coming in the fall.
We could put we could
just-
put a ribbon across the top that says, when the town meeting is, right? Fall.
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Some sort of visual that just clarifies that it would be fall versus spring.
Yep. Yep, that's a good point.
All right, good. What's your next item there, Mike?
That's all we had for you this evening. I think you have some invoices and minutes to cover, but that's all the project team has for updates.
Is there anything from the group that anyone had any questions? Okay, good. All right, well, thank you guys very much. Unless you want to hang out and watch us pay bills.
Is May 7th the next date? That was what was on the original schedule. Is that pretty firm, or are we moving, or
Meeting,
For
I'm
the-
sorry.
for the
Firm.
next SBC, full group SBC meeting?
I see no reason to change it unless there's, Mike and Jeff, do you have any thoughts that is 7th too close?
It's really a question for Chris, as he's got the majority of the content, but I think he's still on track with his original schedule.
We'll come and show you all the things.
Okay,
Some stuff might still
Do
be
more
making,
exciting
but
stuff for the next meeting, because there's a
Yeah.
lot of process, right? We just finished all the user meetings the last 2 days, so.
yeah, we'll definitely have updated floor plans, definitely have updated site plans. They may not be the final ones, but we'll definitely have stuff to talk about, so.
The one thing we had on the work plan, Chris, was potentially discussing MEP systems and sustainability. As long as your team is ready for those conversations. Or we can adjust the agenda.
To
if
Mike,
needed.
or was that the following meeting?
Sorry, say that again.
Was the construction manager on that?
Yep, and that was on our end, was the CM versus GC discussion.
Yeah, so we have plenty to talk about on the 7th.
Yep.
I might punt the MEPs and sustainability if we're doing
We can sort that
CMR.
out.
Yeah, okay.
we'll need to know on that, Chris, because we did say that we would have the town energy manager
Right.
at one of those meetings, so if he
Yeah.
want to be at that one.
We'll coordinate that.
We'll tighten up the schedule. Yep.
So yes, so the next meeting will be May 7th at 7:30.
Okay, great, perfect. All right, well, good, thanks, everybody. Thanks for
Thank
making
you.
the effort, Chris, of swinging from the airport.
Safe travels, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
All right, so let's see. Next item on the agenda would be to review and approve invoices. So,
You want me to put them up?
yep, and I printed them anyhow because I'm old.
Okay, so the first one I have is from TAPE for the month of March.
Yep.
And the total of the invoice is $52,500.
All right, so I make a motion that we approve the invoice for TAPE for the professional services from March 1st through the 31st for the amount of $52,500.
Second,
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
aye,
Aye.
Great, it passed unanimously. Second bill, because I actually printed.
So, yeah, it's Vertex for March as well, and the total is $19,575.13.
Okay. All right, so sorry, just I'm looking at that. Oh, that's because I didn't print both. Okay, so I make a motion that we approve the invoice for Vertex for professional services for the month of March for the amount of $19,575.13.
second,
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
aye,
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. Next item would be the approval of the meeting minutes. So I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of Wednesday, March 19th, as written.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and so that passed unanimously. I think that would be it. So I make a motion to adjourn for the school building committee. We'll follow up with a permanent building committee after that. So thank you all for coming, and we'll see you on the 7th.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, good night. Thanks, everybody. All right. So next item on the agenda is I'm going to call the permanent building committee to order. Or I make a motion to open the meeting. So the first item on the agenda would be the Lansing Millis update. So we actually got bids in from 2 contractors. There was inquiries from, Ellen had said 7 or 8 contractors, and we actually received bids from 2. And so I just afterwards thought to send you guys the original scope that they bid on. So that gets sent to you tonight. And if we look at the bids, the Aquaberries was the lowest bid. We will be only able to do we won't be able to do the full scope of everything. They can do the base bid that we can do. We have to leave an allowance for the replacement of the lead flashing, and they had an option to replace the flat roof that was on the building. We had that as an alt because actually Aquaberries had gone and looked at it, and they stated that the copper roof was in good shape, and they did not feel that it needed to be replaced, but I had them put a alt in just in case. So we'd have a number if they get into it and found out that it was, not in good shape. So what we need to do is, if we decide that this is the way we want to go, obviously the lower bid would be the optional bid, the best bid to go with. We would recommend that to the select board, and then they would go to contract with them. So Jim, look like you're going to say something.
No, I can't remember. What did we appropriate originally? What did the town meeting?
I know I had to have Kim look that up. $250. Because
What I thought, but
yeah, so we're coming in just with the base bid.
Yeah.
We're coming in just below that, so we can fit in. We won't be able to repoint the whole building. We broke it up so that they would repoint the areas above the roof line as part of the base bid. So the base bid has repairing the turret area, replacing all the shingles, replacing the fascias and some soffit boards, not all of them. Painting the building, so they'll power wash and paint the building. And we have an alt in there to replace the lead flashing, because the lead flashing coming out of the stonework and the turret is, 100 years old or over 100 years old. And then we have another alt for the entire building repointing, which doesn't fit in our budget. So
just going to go a long way to getting done what we want to do, though.
Yeah.
Securing the building, yeah.
It'll basically stabilize the building. And I think we had conversations, Ellen, remember, with about the DPW and trying to get those lights taken care of. We were going to put the security lights. So I don't know if we were going to do that separately.
That's separate. That isn't even a part of this. Has Jim done anything by the way? He said he was going to do that
Well,
months ago.
I haven't actually
I'll
checked.
find that out. He
Yeah.
said that he had everything. It was nothing, but it's not part of this bid.
Yeah, so that way we'll have the security lights set up on that, and we'll have the building so it's stabilized. So at least that way we would give us more time to figure out what they want to do with it. So if there's no other discussion, I'd make a motion that we approve Aquabearers as the preferred contractor to send to the select board to go to contract with.
Second,
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. All right, and passed unanimously. We will have, we did have a conversation with, Jim from the DPW and, Dave Ramachi, who is, actually could serve and, as our, not official clerk of the works, but they could actually go down and observe the work as it's going on because, you know, we would want to have a set of eyes down there to look at it along with, you know, we can inspect it afterwards, but we'd actually have boots on the ground, because we don't have a OPM on this, you know, we'll have to self-perform that. So that at least we'll have a set of eyes looking at it. And then Al and I could go down on the weekend with a cup of Dunkin' Donuts coffee and go out and criticize everything.
Great idea.
So, and actually, John, if you're around, you know, you'd be more than welcome too. We could get you down there to take a peek.
Absolutely.
Well, both Johns, there's two Johns. So that'd be great. So, all right. And let's see, the next item on the agenda would be to, approve the, meeting minutes from the last meeting. So, all right, let's get the right one. Do you have the date on that, Kim?
It was 3/19, yeah, same
Oh,
date
okay.
as,
All right, so I make a motion that we approve the permanent building meeting minutes of March 19th as written.
Second,
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. So I think that was it. Kim, do we have another date all set up?
no, we don't. I mean, we have been kind of dovetailing with the school building committee. I don't know, but we have 2 school building committee meetings on this calendar for May, according to the schedule they gave out a while ago. I don't know if we need 2 permanent building committees, but
Yeah, I think we'll just, so maybe we'll keep a tentative for the same date of the 7th. And if we need to have one, great. If not, we could skip it till the second meeting in May.
right.
So,
Yeah, I'll just check in with you before I post an agenda and we'll see.
yeah. All right, good. All right, well, I think that was it. Thank you, everybody, for your time, and I wish you all a good night. Oh, and
Thank
I make
you.
a motion.
Have a great
I make a motion to adjourn. Sorry.
Second,
All right, motions been made and seconded. All in favor?
aye.
All
Aye.
right, great. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
folks.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Have a
Night,
good night.
Ellen.